Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, US warplanes bomb IS group headquarters in Libya. The UN-backed government says it asked for the Pentagon's intervention in Sirte and says that it's running the show when it comes to foreign forces on its soil. Also, despite ongoing tensions in DR Congo over suspicions that President Kabila is hoping to stay on in office beyond his mandate, voter registration gets underway in a bid to tackle one of the main opposition concerns ahead of this year's vote. And Yaoundé has tried to call time on tatty taxis ahead of the Women's African Cup of Nations tournament coming to the city. But many drivers have ignored a deadline for upgrades, saying that they don't come easy. But first, the US has responded to calls for help from Libya's UN-backed government and sent in planes to bomb Islamic State group targets in Sirte. The government of National Accord said that the airstrikes won't go beyond the coastal city where pro-GNA militia have been battling IS. Sirte became a stronghold for the jihadists after they began expanding into Libya in 2014.
Sirte, the stronghold of the Islamic State group in Libya for over a year, like Raqqa in Syria and Mosul in Iraq, is one of the main cities Westerners aim to retake from the militants. Forces aligned with the UN-backed government of Libya launched an offensive in May to retake the city, but progress has been slow. The United States conducted precise airstrikes on militant positions in Sirte on Monday.
Today, at the request of Libya's government of national accord, the United States conducted precision airstrikes against ISIL targets in Sirte, Libya, to support GNA-affiliated forces seeking to defeat ISIL in its primary stronghold in Libya. And additional U.S. strikes will continue to target ISIL in Sirte and enable the GNA to make a decisive strategic advance.
Washington had already conducted strikes against militant positions in Libya, but never at the request of the Libyan government. The head of the Government of National Accord claimed these airstrikes had caused important losses within the ranks of the enemy. But he stressed that the United States' involvement would for now remain minimal.
We asked for air support from the international alliances, mainly the United States. But we affirmed that there will be no combat military presence on the ground, and all will be limited to technical supports and logistical only if needed.
The fall of Sirte would be a major blow to the Islamic State group, which has already faced a series of setbacks in Syria and Iraq.
The biological father of a South African woman who was abducted right after her birth in 1997 broke down in tears in court on Monday. Morn Nurse became emotional as he testified at the sentencing hearing of the 51-year-old woman who snatched his daughter Zephany from a hospital and raised her as her own. The teen's real identity was confirmed with DNA tests after her biological sister told her parents that a girl at her school bore a striking resemblance to the family. The kidnapper's name is being held back to prevent the identification of the victim. Her real family says that they're willing to be patient.
It takes time, but we need to persevere. Because it's very hard on Zephany, because she didn't grow up with us. And it's painful and tough for her. But we as a family, we do understand and we trust in God that she will come to know who is a real father, a real mother, and a family.
Special votings begun in South Africa for local elections due on Wednesday, in which the ruling ANC is expected to face its toughest challenge yet. The elderly, disabled and other groups began casting their ballots early on Monday and can do so until Tuesday. The opposition Democratic Alliance and the Economic Freedom Fighters are hoping to make big gains in the polls by capitalizing on growing frustration with President Jacob Zuma's party. Opinion polls suggest that the ANC could lose major seats, which would reshape the political playing field ahead of the general election due in 2019. In DR Congo, there are tensions that remain very much centre stage of the run-up to elections due in November. Critics of President Joseph Kabila accuse him of manoeuvring to try and delay the vote in a bid to stay on in power beyond the end of his second mandate at the end of the year. Meanwhile, preparations have slowly got underway. Voter registration's begun, but it remains a touchy subject for opposition leaders who say the system has long been inherently flawed.
When the head of Congo's Electoral Commission, Corneille Nangaa, landed in Badolite, he was welcomed like a head of state. This is the town in northern Congo where former President Mobutu built a vast palace. A little later, Nangaa launched the much-awaited nationwide voter registration process.
We said that we needed 16 months and 1 day to finish this operation. 5 months have gone by, and everything is running to schedule as we planned it. In the coming days, we will publish the timeline for the registration operations, and of course, we will publish the election timetable as soon as possible.
The Commission presented some high-tech voter identification material. The opposition says the former electoral register was flawed. The issue has been at the heart of the nation's political crisis. Voters have high hopes ahead of the next presidential poll.
When there's peace, you can develop a country. Your children can go to school, and you can live life the way you should.
Our country is behind compared to other countries. Other countries are evolving. Look at Benin. They had elections. People are moving forward. They're handling things well, and that's what we want here.
The aim of the Electoral Commission is to avoid a repeat of the chaos that marred the 2011 poll. The results of that election were not deemed credible by many observers, including those from the European Union.
In Nigeria, the alleged ringleader of a global email scamming network has been arrested. The 40-year-old, who's only been identified as Mike, is on administrative bail after having been detained in Port Harcourt in June. He's accused of cheating companies out of around $60 million and was wanted by both Interpol and Nigeria's anti-fraud agency. The ring reportedly involved dozens of scammers in Nigeria, Malaysia and South Africa, using malware that would intercept suppliers' emails and send fake messages to buyers with new payment details. And finally, out with the old is proving to be a bit of a headache for transport chiefs in Yaoundé, hoping to clean up the act of taxi drivers. A deadline for old bangers to be shaped up or shipped out has come and gone. But many Cameroonians who make a living behind the wheel say that they can't afford to pimp their rides for appearance's sake.
Roaring into action. A cloud of toxic smoke erupts out of his old taxi's engine. One of 12,000 decrepit cars driving around Yaoundé with a July deadline to smarten up its act or be taken off the road. Yet Guy, a taxi driver, has no intention of abandoning his 20-year-old motor.
I'm a father of 6 children, and it's with my taxi that I raise them. I earn 1,000 CFA francs a day.
Rusting bodywork, boots overflowing with scrap metal and sugarcane. Authorities are keen to make over Yaoundé streets by ditching rundown runabouts ahead of a Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament due to be held here in November. But in a city without public transportation, it's difficult to escape old taxis.
When there are no other options, you take the taxi that's available, even when it's in this pitiful state.
Many of the capital's streets are riddled with potholes. For those in Cameroon's taxi union, the priority should be repairing the roads.
The roads of Yaoundé don't allow us to clean our cars, because you need to clean your cars at least 3 times a day to be able to drive on these roads. Look at the state of the roads. When it rains, it's impossible to drive here. Today we are lucky. It has not rained for 1 week, because when it rains here, there are floods.
For those who have invested in keeping up appearances, the rewards go beyond the cosmetic. This driver says dressing the part helps his business.
The taxi is my office, so I need to keep it clean, and it makes me happy to know that customers are happy to sit in the car.
Yaoundé's transport bosses hope that chauffeurs like Constant will steer taxis to change for the better.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and please do so again if you can. Take care.